expecting to do it in English. Is that okay with everyone? C'est correct? Tout le monde fasse en anglais? Parfait. All right. Now I'm nervous with all you guys here. So, why are you here exactly? Like, what about continuous integration is interesting? Have you already tested continuous integration and kind of got blocked? Or is it something that people have suggested you try and you haven't tried yet? Who's already tried either Jenkins or some of the other tools, okay? And you've kind of gotten blocked, or you're just here for best practices and so on, okay? And the rest of you, maybe show of hands, if you've never tried this stuff at all, just heard of it? Okay. So, I call this session a practical example because I often find that with the theory of continuous integration, everything makes sense. When you actually sit down and do it, you come across a lot of pitfalls. So I'll do away with all my slides for the moment and just show you a practical example, a practical setup. And I've used code that you can actually download from GitHub. So if you head over to dcycleproject.org, you can just click on sample D7 site on GitHub. And it's going to bring you here, and you can just clone this. Now, when you clone it, what happens? What are you going to get? It's basically a standard install of Drupal with a few little extras. And I want to show you those right now so you know what we're talking about. So the first thing you'll notice is that I've included a deployment module. And this is, since about a year now, I'm always using this on all my projects, a deployment module. Think of your website as a software product, which you can deploy on any number of environments, any number of servers, testing stage. A new team member comes in, you deploy it on their computer, etc. And where is the code that actually does this deployment and the associated testing to make sure it works? Well, it's going to be your deployment module. And I always call it namespace_deploy. So in this case, it's a demo. We're doing so I have a demo deploy module, and here's what it does. I'll show you the module. So as you can see, the module file is empty. It doesn't do anything, and that's a good thing. We don't want to have lots of business logic in our deployment module. Our deployment module is just exists in order to deploy all the other aspects of our site. What else do we have? We have our tests. So in this case, quite simple to start with. We're going to get a bit more complex later on. So the only thing we want to be doing in our tests, how many of you are familiar with simple tests and have used simple tests? Show of hands. Okay. How many are familiar with testing? How do you test if it's not with simple tests? You have like a guy just click through the different stuff in your interface? How do you test? Okay, you, how do you test? Having someone click through the interface. That's pretty much everyone here? Okay, so that's better than nothing. I mean, congratulations if you're doing that. That's good. However, in the case of Jenkins, the idea of Jenkins is, I'll show you an example screenshot here. So this is our demo project. The idea of Jenkins is to always give you kind of a state of your project. Every time you commit something, Jenkins is going to test it, and then it's going to put either a red ball or a blue. For some reason they chose blue over green, which is weird, but they chose blue. And in Japan they have the blue as the means go.
Blue and green is very similar.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Yeah, he's a Japanese guy actually. What's his name? Yokoshima or something, who's behind this project. That's a good point. All right. I'll integrate it into my next.
If the blue bother you, there's a green plugin in the Jenkins.
It's a green plugin. Okay. Well, you can just forget the presentation. Yeah. Try installing the green. Anyways, so you can't have. I mean, Jenkins is not going to have like some guy behind clicking through the interface. You need to actually automate these tests. And before we even talk about continuous integration, the reason why we're implementing this stuff is in order to test your code. And so you need to think about automating that test in the first place. So I'll show you what a simple simple test looks like, although it's out of scope for this particular talk, but you will need to start testing, either with simple tests for kind of request-response tested, request-response scenarios, or with a tool like Bhat or Phantom.js or some other of the tools for JavaScript. But you will need to really think about automated testing to get the most out of CI. CI being continuous integration. So here's a test, real simple. I want my site, for now, all my site does is enable the Corolla theme. That's all it does, right? So we're going to test this here. We're going to, of course, we're going to enable our deploy module in this case because our deploy module deploys everything we need for our site, and we're not cloning databases. I'm not going to clone a single database today, so I don't believe in it. And I'll maybe tell you why if you have questions about that later on. So it deploys in the setup. It enables our deployment module, and in the test, it's going to go to the front page. And it's going to assert raw, meaning it's going to look at the HTML output, and it's going to assert that themes/Corolla exists somewhere in that output. And if it does, it's going to conclude the Corolla theme is active. Okay? Now this is a very simple test, but that's going to be run on every commit by Jenkins. So anytime this breaks, you're going to have a red little dot. And the idea with Jenkins is when you insert more and more functionality, you insert the tests with them in your code. That way, every new commit is going to run through the entire test suite, and if something breaks, well, it's going to tell you. So I would recommend testing. Okay, so this is what we have in the test file. I'll try to speed things up a bit. Our info file is basically, our deployment module is nothing magic, it's just a Drupal module, so very, very simple stuff. And the magic happens in the install module. This is where everything related to the deployment of our website happens. Okay. Now, there's a really question.
Just a question. Is there a reason why you're using an install module or deploy module as opposed to the installation profile?
I don't like installation profiles personally. I know a lot of people do. Every single experience I've had with installation profiles has been catastrophic. They're not maintained. No one understands them. I pass them on to teammates, and they're like, "What the hell is this? I don't understand. Where is this module?" I lose a lot of time. If in your organization you have a workflow around installation profiles, by all means, it's very compatible with Jenkins. But from my experience, I don't use them because I don't like them. But if someone does and uses them, that's fine by me. You know? So what am I doing here? Now, I can't. Don't forget, I'm not cloning databases. And I don't want to give Jenkins a little Word document that says, to deploy this site, go and click in Appearance and activate the Corolla theme. Because Jenkins can't do that. And you don't want Jenkins to do that. You want everything to be in code. Another way to do this, apart from having like a Word document, is to have some sort of to actually tell people to do it every time, or to just go and click yourself in every one of those databases, or to clone the database. And again, if you clone the database, the information about what theme is supposed to be the good theme is going to be nowhere in code. So it's not going to be in your version control. And if something is not in version control, as far as I'm concerned, it does not exist. You can't test it. You can't know what happened to, you can't know who inserted that information and when, because you have no history about it. So that's why I'm keeping my database information very separate from my code. So on my initial install, right, I basically enable my Corolla theme. That's what's tested. Now, once I've deployed to production and stage, and all of my colleagues have this site, I need to remove the login block. So I don't want the login block to be on the front page. I have my own logic for user logins. I want to remove the login block. Can anyone see any problem with this code? Because there is a problem with this code. Let's say a new team member comes in and enables my deploy module. Yeah, here?
No, but I just you don't use team enabled correctly.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
I'm pretty bad at actually writing code, and you're probably right. And I wouldn't mind.
That's not the problem you're looking for.
Yeah, that's basically for me. If I write it and I test it and it works, that's it. But I'm not pretending to be like this is a perfect way of doing so. I would be very interested in knowing the right way of doing theme enabled. But maybe at the end, if we have time, if you don't mind. So, any problem with this code apart from the actual usage of the API?
Please zoom in a bit.
Pardon me?
Please zoom in a bit.
Oh, zoom in, sorry, yeah, of course. You tell me if you don't see something, yeah. I'll give you a hint. Don't actually look at the code, look at the functions, yeah.
Well, you wrote the underscore 7002. Is that an incremental?
In fact, that's not a problem.
No.
The reason why I wrote 7002 is because my 7001, when I run it, it didn't do anything. And I figured I had a problem, so I just changed it, but I can't run it again from 7001, so I had 7002. Does everyone know about update hooks, how they work? Update hooks work by telling on each environment, if a hook has not been run, it's going to give you a big red line in your report status saying your database is not up to date. Please run DrupalCamp-Mtl-2013 as soon as possible, or whatever your update method is. That's how update hooks work. So the problem with this code is that if I installed my site before adding my update hook, and then I run DrupalCamp-Mtl-2013 with this new code, my login block is going to be removed. When I have a new person on the team, right, that just came into the agency, and I can say, okay, here, work on this project. Here's the code. Run drush-en deploy demo deploy, and you're set to go. That person is going to have the login block on their home page because this code is not run on installations. So that's really important to know. That one thing that you really have to keep in mind every time you write code with this method is it has to work on your computer. It has to work when you deploy it to a brand new installation, which is what simple test does. And it also has to work when you deploy it incrementally, right? So let's go ahead and fix this code. Maybe not the best way of doing it, but it's a way that works. We're going to have to run this exact same code in our install hook in order for it to execute on new installations of the site. Are you following me? Good. Okay. I've lost a little bit of time, so I'm going to try and make it quick. That's it, basically. That's where all the deployment logic goes, and that's it. That's my site. Now, what happens when I deploy? I tend to like to have my scripts in my deployment module, just because they're code. I want them to be in version control. I don't want to have these scripts in like Jenkins jobs that are going to be on some server somewhere that are not version control. So I have them here. Here's my deployment script. No, that's not what I want. I want to check. Here's what happens when I check master. Okay. Now. Okay. It's quite simple. There's a little bit of a hack here going on because when I run drush test run demo, which runs the test I showed you earlier, it's never going to exit with an exit code other than 0, even if the test fails. I have to do this kind of this convoluted process here where I run through results and grep v error. But the idea is to exit with an exit code 1 if an error occurs. Yeah.
There's a patch in Drush to exit with it.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't work. It's actually been applied to Drush dev, and it just doesn't work.
I used it and it worked.
Come see me after. Yeah, maybe it's not the same patch. Was the one submitted by Stephen Jones, or?
I don't remember.
Come and see me after. I'd be really interested in seeing that. So this is what it does basically. It tests an initial deployment. What it also does is it's going to set my staging site in maintenance mode, update my database, run my update DB hooks, and clear my cache, run cron, and get out of maintenance mode. So it's basically doing two things, and you know, one could argue that we want to do these things separate, but just for sake of simplicity, let's just say we're doing them at the same time. We're running our update hooks, and then we're running our simple tests. If everything works, we'll just make a little blue dot. Once that's done, and that's pushed to master, what I wanted to do is to deploy the actual code. So this is what it more or less does. It's going to SSH into whatever my production server is. It's going to git pull my origin from whatever. I'm just passing on arguments to this shell script. It's going to register rebuild in case I moved some modules around, and you want Drush to just have a panic attack. So you want to rebuild your registry. Set your maintenance mode to 1. Clear your cache. Enable the demo deploy module, because it might not be enabled. If it is, well, it already is. It's not a big problem. Update your database, clear all your caches, run cron, and get out of maintenance mode. But do all of this stuff after SSHing with a public-private key pair into whatever argument 1 is. In this case, my TP1 is server.example.com module. So that's it. That's all there is to it. Now let's get to Jenkins and see how this actually works. This is my development site, local site. This is exactly what I see here. All right. This is the code I can change. I push it to master. What happens? I have this project on. This is on my actual local machine, and you know what? Installing Jenkins on a Mac takes like 5 minutes. Installing it on CentOS takes about 6 minutes. It's super, super, super fast to install. There's really no reason why you wouldn't have a copy of Jenkins to just start playing around with as soon as possible. So this particular Jenkins project, what does it do? I'll go into the configuration and I'll just walk through it with you. First of all, the first thing you need to do if you have a Jenkins working on it that needs to access a local web server like mine, is to tell it what the custom workspace is. Because if you don't do this, Jenkins is going to use this weird workspace you don't know about and that you can't access via a web address like localhost. So in this case, I'm going to use the stage workspace. Tell it which Git repo you want. Again, this is on GitHub, so you can access this yourself. And what I'm going to get is the master branch from the origin. One other thing that took me hours and hours of debugging to figure out is that you have to put origin here. If you don't, when you try to push your changes back to another branch, it's going to give you some weird error that it's really impossible to decipher. So you really have to put origin, and it's not documented anywhere. You have to put origin there. Okay, I'm going to tell it to pull the source code manager every minute. Because I want, as soon as I make a change to master, I want Jenkins to know about it. And I want to execute a shell script. Now, what you could do is take all of this stuff and just put it in here. But if you do, it's not going to be under source code manager. So see what you prefer. I tend to prefer to keep my shell script very, very simple in my Jenkins, and I want all of my actual logic to be in source code. You have post-build action. So if Git succeeds, well, if my test succeeds, if my build succeeds, I can push to the production branch, and of my origin, which I defined earlier. If you don't define your origin, it's just going to break. That's it, basically. You have a whole bunch of other post-build tasks. You can do fun stuff like create documentation for your code based on your comments. You can do a lot of cool stuff. You can notify yourself by IRC if your build failed or passed. It's kind of nifty stuff. So I'll save this. What happens next? This actually, I'm going to go to the staging site, stage.local, which corresponds to the workspace. Tell me if you're not following along. Right? Is everything okay till now? Okay. Stage.local corresponds exactly to this. I mean, in real life, you wouldn't have this on your local Mac. Right? You'd have an actual Jenkins server, but this is more for sake of an example. This corresponds to this this path here. That's my staging site. And actually, during the course of the entire presentation, if all goes well, I'm never going to touch it. And you should never touch your staging site yourself either, or your Jenkins kind of workspace yourself. You should always go through Jenkins. And this is what it looks like. I deployed my site. And in fact, the fact that I deployed it first and then upgraded makes it look like this. Otherwise, if I had deployed it after I wrote my update book, I would still have my user login block because I had that error with it. So what happens when the stage is okay, my tests pass, I have a post hook here that pushes to the branch production. We'll forget about staging branch for now to keep it simple. If master passes, we're going to move this code over to production. Now, there is this may differ from one organization to another. Perhaps you're going to prefer to not have Jenkins push stuff to different branches without a human being being involved. I'm just put it like this to make it apparent and clear. So once it actually pushes it to production, your code resides in production Drupal site. And what does that do? Well, let's take a look. It's going to get my repository URL from Git. It doesn't use a custom workspace because I don't need it, right? I'm publishing to a production website somewhere. I'm not using my actual Jenkins server. And it's going to run this simple script I showed you earlier, which SSHs into machine. Of course, you have to, don't forget to switch users on your local machine, become Jenkins, give yourself a public SSH key, and make sure that SSH key is not only recognized by your Git account, but also you have to run SSH. You have to also run SSH in the command line for you to approve the fingerprint before Jenkins can do it. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get an error in Jenkins that your Git repo is not available. It's a weird error that it's hard to decipher. It's because you haven't approved your fingerprint on the command line. So just keep that in mind. So of course, you have to set all this SSH stuff up. You have to be familiar with that. So that's all I'm doing basically. I'm just telling, okay, deploy to the server example.com. Actually, tell you a secret, it's not a real server. It's actually on my local machine. So, oops. Right, so I have serverexample.com, as you can see, is 1.7001. So it's just an example in order to show you that you can actually have Jenkins SSH into a remote machine. All right, so, and that's basically all I want to do when I'm deploying the site. Right? Now, if you follow the practice of just don't clone databases, okay? Make sure that all of this works without cloning, and once this works, then clone your databases as much as you want. But don't rely on cloning databases in order to develop and deploy stuff. Because at one point it's going to come back and bite you. So it's 224. We're going to actually add some functionality to this site. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to do I'm just going to make a photo gallery, right? I'm going to develop a photo gallery. I'm going to deploy it. I'm not going to test it because we don't have time. But normally you would test it. You would say visit page, a gallery, assert true, and you'd make sure that certain stuff is there. You'd make sure that certain roles are able to upload files and for them to appear for anonymous users. I mean, ideally you do this, but I'm not going to do it now because we just don't have time. So first thing I want to do, if I want to make a photo gallery, I'm going to get views and features. I'm basically always going to be using features. If you're going to be wanting to position blocks and stuff, you're going to use context as well. If you want to download, yeah, I'm too nervous. I'm just so nervous. Okay. So download these two modules, and I'm going to enable them. Right? And if I'm developing a photo gallery and I don't have any content, I'm not going to be able to develop it correctly, so I'm going to download Devel. I'm going to enable Devel generate, and I'm going to generate some content. I'll generate like 50 nodes basically. So just I have something to work with. I have some basic dummy content so I can actually see if my photo gallery works correctly. I'm going to go ahead and develop it. Now don't forget, anytime you develop anything, you have to always be thinking, how am I going to deploy this stuff, right? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know what I'm going to do? I don't like the standard toolbar. I don't like it. I prefer admin, how's it called?
Admin.
How is it called?
Admin.
Admin menu. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that. Now, I'm not going to do this. Because if I do it, I'm only affecting my local database. The presence of admin menu is going to be only on my local database, right? Okay, it's in my Git repo. How am I going to enable it? Well, I'm going to enable it on my install file, right? What is it? Module enabled, right? Let me just check to make sure. Yeah, module enabled, and I think module disable is different. No, that's the same one. Okay, great. So I'm going to module enable my admin menu toolbar. Now the astute among you will have noticed that I put tool BR. That's on purpose. I want to show you something. I'm going to module disable the actual toolbar that ships with Drupal, which I don't like too much. All right, so this is my new update hook. I'm going to run it. DrupalCamp-DB. Every time I'm deploying anything, I'll always do it through DrupalCamp-DB. I don't want to be sending the operations people a Word document that says, can you just do drush-en? No, it's always DrupalCamp-DB. And I want to test it on my machine first to make sure it works. By the way, if you put comments on top of your update hooks, it's going to actually tell you what you're doing. I just don't have time to do it now, but it's kind of fun. All right, so I enabled my toolbar, but it's not there. I made a mistake. I just want to show you something. When you do make such a mistake, just fixing it is not going to work. If you rerun UpDB, it's not going to rerun 7003. That's why you're going to have to put this one higher also. Understand? So that's why your update hooks are not going to be sequential, because you're going to be making these kinds of mistakes. Now, where's the problem? Right? This is not going to work on initial installs, right? It's going to only work on incremental deployments. So this is an incremental installation. It's going to work fine. Stop me if I'm too fast. Okay? Everyone's following? All right. So the solution is, right? In this case, I want to disable the toolbar here, and I want to enable admin menu toolbar here. Dependencies, right? Okay. And that's going to work for initial installs. But you know what? This is super error prone. You're going to forget it half the time, and it's not. You can't test it reliably, right? You're going to have to write two separate suites of tests, one for your incremental installs and one for your initial install. So what I like to do is I just like to run simply all of my updates in my initial installation. I wouldn't suggest doing this if you're developing a module for Drupal.org, but if you're developing a website, I like to have my initial installation be the same as my incremental installation and do so by just calling systematically all of my updates. So basically, I'll have something like this. Wait. And then I'd do something like, if function exists, demo, deploy, update, then I'm just going to run it basically. I think PHP doesn't like that. You understand this? You understand what I'm doing? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you don't have to ever think about initial deployments again. Sorry, I'm going to zoom this in. Okay. Now this may not be the most elegant solution, but for me it always has worked. My initial installations are always identical to my incremental installations because I'm just running all my hooks. So does anyone not understand this code? You.
Instead of declaring module dependencies in your install profile, you just like at the beginning of a project, your first hook update end contains like all your dependencies to your modules, and you just run it.
No, I try to put it into my .info dependencies also.
Okay.
But someone at some point is going to forget, right? And
It happens.
it's going to create a breakage that's going to be super hard to debug in a lot of cases, right? So the best practice is, of course, to put it in your dependency file. But at some point, I like to do that. There's no harm in just running your update into going theme enable whatever. If it's already enabled, it's not going to break, right? So it's a good point, and I just like to put my install hook like this and just forget about it. Okay. All right. So now it's going to probably work, right? Let's not deploy it right away. Yeah, there's a question back there.
Yeah, just from experience, you definitely have exactly what you're showing there.
Could you just speak up a little bit?
Yeah,
a bit
so
harder.
one of the things that I've experienced before in doing exactly what you're describing, putting the update, calling the update hooks from the install hook, is that now in the future when I have 500 update hooks, it's very difficult for me to start proving away the old update hooks that are no longer.
Why?
One of the things that I've experienced.
Because you're calling them specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you do it with this method that I just showed you, it's going to basically check if the function exists before calling it, so it's not going to break. So I found that yeah, it's good. It's a good point. I mean, you are going to be wanting to prune away. Well, in my experience, I always want to be pruning them, but I just never have time to do it. And it doesn't really matter. Because the thing is, if you prune them, your sequence of calling them is going to be different from one environment to another. So that's why I just, if I made a mistake in an update hook, I'm going to fix it in the next one, because I want all my environments to act in the exact same way and to keep the history of all the mistakes I made. So I know that if I have a problem on production, there's a good chance I'll have it on my dev site also, right? So I'm going to just move on a little bit because we are getting a little bit off schedule. So let's do something fun. Let's add, now we have content. Now I have my nice menu that I like, right? I'm going to add a new view. And this actually affects the database, but I don't mind because I'm going to be using features after deploy. So I'm going to be calling it gallery, right? I'll make a page with, I don't know, 12 items. And I'll be showing fields. You guys know how views works, right? Okay, and I'm going to basically make it as a grid. Yeah, 4 is good. Sure. And my field is going to be an image of the style medium, right? And actually I don't want the word image to appear there. Oh yeah, I'm going to actually get only my articles as well. Yeah, it's maybe a bit tedious, but you know, it is a practical example. So I want to just make sure that we all understand every single step. That looks pretty nice, right? Maybe the image, the actual image label I don't want. And I'll keep the title, why not? All right, this is my view, and I'm going to put it on my front page, normal menu entry, I'll call it gallery. And I'll put it in my main menu. I'll apply that. So just, you know, run-of-the-mill stuff that everyone's always done. Okay. So now when I go to my front page, no, when I go to my, where is it? Interesting. Okay, I'll just go to gallery. Keep things simple. There's my gallery. I'll actually put this on my front page. So I'll put site information. Gallery. All right, let's test this thing. Let's deploy this thing, Rob. The first thing I'm going to do is now I want to deploy my default front page. Okay. So one nice trick I always use is I just inspect the element. often tells me exactly, you know, what is the, site front page here. Site dash front page would be probably the name of the variable that contains the front page. So I can actually check this in Drush by going Drush get site front page, and until I actually find it. Page, go, I'm sorry, Drush get front page. Aha! Front page is the name of the variable. I want to export that. Because everything I do, don't forget in administration pages, I want to export as well. I have a few minutes left, so I'm going to make this quick. You know what I'll do? I'll just tell you about exporting the front page. You have to believe me, because I don't have time to actually. So I'm going to export the view only. So how you export the front page? You're going to be using either. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it actually. Right? You could use the module StrongArm if you want, but to keep things simple, we'll do it in an update. All right. So let's go back to our front page.
Est-ce que tu as de l'expérience d'utiliser StrongArm puis ça fonctionne bien aussi?
Ouais, ça fonctionne bien. Ouais. Okay, so here's our gallery. Let's create a feature with it. Now, one thing about features I suggest is to never override the code in features or add stuff to features. Features is generated code, just leave it as is, make it a dependency of your deployment module. I'll call this demo feature. I'm going to add the view for gallery, and I'm going to generate this.
You don't have StrongArm installed. You don't have StrongArm installed.
No, I don't need StrongArm for now. You can use StrongArm in a real-world situation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new update hook, and I'm going to enable my demo feature. How do I call it? Demo feature, right? I'll enable demo feature, and I'm going to variable set front page to gallery. Okay?
Side front page.
No, it's actually front page.
Which side front page?
No, look, vget front page.
Yeah.
Ah! See? Good thing I have you guys. I would have wondered about that one. Okay. Is that good? Does that make sense? Right? It's good, right? So let's just commit this. Oh, well, actually, I'll actually run my update DB hook. You know, it would tell you what it's doing if you have comments to your code, but since time is pressing, we won't do that. And I'm going to actually drush git add dot git commit added a nice photo gallery git push origin master, and now watch what happens. Okay, now don't forget the DrupalCamp demo project in Jenkins is continuously monitoring master. So you probably go and have a coffee or something, and this stuff would happen in the background. So eventually, after a minute, it's going to kick in. It's going to start building. I'm actually going to run my slides while it does that. So continuous integration, practical example. My name is Albert. Find me at Alberto56 either on Drupal or on Twitter. So this is how we code now, basically, and this is really how we code now. You know, when electricity first became widely used, this is how electrical systems were built. This is how computers were clubbed together in the 1980s, and eventually, we've come to this conclusion. And this is what I want. I want us to like determine as a group of Drupal users that we always have a deployment module in our sites. And it's always, deploying a site is always as easy as just enabling your deployment module. And this is the equivalent of this in my mind. What's continuous integration? Well, initial deployment should be easy, basically, and incremental deployment should be easy. So drush en demo deploy update to deploy your site. That's what Jenkins does. Drush update db is also easy. So just keep stuff automated and easy. Testing though is really time consuming. Let's just see if our thing actually works. Yeah, see it's building right here.
Deux.
Ben, si tu mets tes images dans le cloud, tes références ne sont pas dans la DB.
Ouais, non, c'est ça.
Dans la DB.
Ben, il faut juste que tu trouves une façon de déployer ton contenu autrement. Parce que Drupal n'est pas conçu pour ça. Tous les contenus ont des identités séquentielles. It's just not going to work.
pas migrate ou ça.
Oh no, I don't. I'm not of that school of thought. Some people are, but personally, I just found it a barrel of monkeys. Not monkeys, but vipers.
Juste une remarque sur une question qui a un problème hyper récurrent avec Drupal et les gestions des déploiements. D'expérience, j'ai fait plusieurs fois que les systèmes où on déploie du contenu, il faut complètement séparer ça du déploiement de code. Parce que c'est deux choses séparées. On peut le voir comme un tout en prenant un tout. Et les vraies solutions qui existent pour ce type de problématique, il y a deux choses. D'une part, ce qu'on appelle le staging et le workflow de développement. Il y a le workflow de production de contenu. Et c'est super important de les garder séparés. Ça peut sembler plus simple de les fusionner au début, et donc de déployer son contenu, par exemple, avec un tout code DX. Ça peut se faire. Il y a un module de features extra content. Il existait un module pour déployer des nodes avec features.
Yeah,
Il y a
it's a
plusieurs
wrong
solutions,
approach.
mais c'est des problématiques différentes et il y a des outils différents.
Exactly. It's just a wrong approach to put them together. Like my colleague said, if some of you don't understand French, content deployment, I'm not talking about that today, and I'm not an expert in content deployment. It's just something completely different from configuration deployment, which is what I'm talking about today. So we have to keep that in mind. It's not the same thing at all. Let's see if our thing worked here. Yes, we have a gallery, but we don't have any content. But you know, we do have a gallery. If we added content, we find it. Now let's publish this to production. Okay, I have exactly 1 minute left. Let's build our publish to a production job and see what happens. So basically, I'll just go fast with this stuff. Oh, continuous deployment is kind of cool. If you have 100% confidence in your Jenkins job and your test, you can actually set your deploy to production job as being run automatically. And when you do some master, it just kind of makes its way to production, and that's really cool. Unfortunately, I was going to show it today, but my time's up soon. What I was going to show is just like having a hook update n, which updates your feature, which goes and grabs square photos instead of rectangular ones. Doing that through continuous deployment, that is making your deployment job automatic. And then go and have a coffee, come back, and your deployment is done on production with all your tests passed. That's really fun. I mean, that's not for everyone, but it's kind of cool. Okay, this I just don't have time to talk about. Basically, I just want you to, okay, external systems. Of course, you're going to want to use mock objects. I have a module that I built called Mockable. You might want to take a look at. You don't want to test like a real communication with a CRM and stuff like that. It's just you have to think about mock objects when you're using CI. Don't clone your, just never clone your database. And if you do, have a damn good reason to do it. For example, cloning production to pre-production to make sure that your stuff works in a real environment. Just don't clone your database left and right and be sending your colleagues emails with databases. That's not the way to go. Okay? Your tests are owned by the whole team. You have to be ready to drop everything. For example, if you decide with your team that you're going to run drush code review with minor errors and you're going to break, your entire team has to be willing to drop everything they're doing and fix that extra space if code review tells you to. That you have to be aware of that. So anything you decide as a team that you want to test, and don't have one person decide, have the entire team be willing to own the test. Otherwise, they're just going to ignore Jenkins entirely. I'm going to do some more. This is kind of cool. Now, Jenkins is not just some sort of a dashboard that one person accesses. You have to have visibility. I don't know who these guys are. I took it on the internet. Is any of you guys here? This is not you, right?
We use a Canon.
So if your test fails, you have to either have a big flat screen TV with your Jenkins dashboard, or some sort of a system like this, which you can use if you have people who are knowledgeable about electronics, to have a big green or red light. You have to have your designer walk in, or your integrator, your themer walk into the room and know that your test has failed. You can't have people ignoring failed tests. Yes?
Can you just set something up like
having it automatically send an email to the person who opted to git commit that failed?
Yeah, you can do all kinds of
And
stuff.
then it'll say, I'm kicking this out,
Anything,
fix it.
there's like, hundreds of plugins to Jenkins. Hundreds of plugins. You can do all
There's a
kinds of
LLM
stuff.
plugin, a Canon plugin. There's a lot of plugin in Jenkins for
Yeah.
notification and
A lot of cool stuff, and anything you can do in the command line, you can do in Jenkins. So that's almost everything. Okay, just don't work on other branches in master. Let Jenkins do that. If you're working on master, you want all your people to work on master. Don't subvert your process. This is one quick, I'll be quick, okay, another few minutes. All your client's credit card numbers are visible on your home page. What do? Your tests take 2 hours to run, and you know that there's one comma somewhere in your code that's making all these credit cards appear. Do you go into production and remove that comma? I would say that perhaps in this extreme case, maybe. If your client is losing $100 a minute, perhaps. But in most cases, you should go through your process. If you're subverting your process, do so for a damn good reason. For example, this. It's about the culture too. I mean, people are going to you're going to install Jenkins and no one's going to care, right? Unless they own the process. So my time at TP1 goes overwhelmingly just talking about Jenkins, giving demos, discussing it, and actually installing it is really a piece of cake. Okay, this is Jack. I don't have time for this stuff. Okay, done. So let's go and see fun stuff. Did it deploy? Yeah, it deployed. Okay, do you have a few more minutes, or should I stop? Yeah. Okay. All right. That's something fun. Okay, I'll just take 2 minutes for this. So I'm gonna actually go to production. Of course, in your real production, you wouldn't want root and root to be your actual production. I'm going to create an actual piece of content. I'm going to create an article, right? I'm going to call it kitten. And by the way, I would really recommend that every one of you have a kittens directory in your computer for testing purposes. Because every time you need to find an image, you're like, God, where are we going to find an image now? And you fiddle around with your computer. A kittens directory is really cool. Kind of a low-tech solution to that problem. Okay, so great. So your client loves the new gallery, right? Just loves it. May put a kitten in, right? Now you have to deploy a change. Now this is where not cloning databases come in. If you're going to clone your database, you'd lose your client's change. So this is where stuff comes in. Like for example, I'm going to go back here. I'll try to do this really quickly because I know that time's up. I'm going to go back to my view here, and I'm going to say, well, I don't actually like, I don't like the small size. I don't like the medium size. I'd rather have the thumbnail size, right? And let's apply that. Okay, that's great. It works on dev. We're going to actually revert, update or revert? Update our feature, so demo feature. Right? Great. We're going to go into our deployment thing and say, right, we're going to have to revert. So I think it's features, revert. Wait a second. So demo feature, I'm going to revert my view, okay, perfect. Drush, update, make sure everything works. And now I'm going to do it with continuous deployment. So I have such confidence in my test suite that I'm going to go here and I'm going to automate this publish to my Drupal site. Right, so I know you're getting a bit fidgety, won't be long. And I'm going to automate this every minute, okay? And during question period, we're going to hope that our change gets deployed to production. So I'm going to git add doc, git commit, thumbnail, not medium size images. Git push origin master. Of course, always work on your master. Now, if we're lucky, after question period, I'm going to reload this page and we have a smaller kitten. This is production site. I just pushed a master. I'm not doing anything. It's all automated. Questions?
Why did you feature it back? Why did you do a feature back in Rush?
Did I do a feature revert? Ah, damn it. I didn't do a feature update? Ah, it's not going to work. Are you sure about that?
You did do it.
Ah, I'm an idiot.
In your update,
Ah, no, I didn't update.
Look in the
in your
Oh, the code! Oh, yes, well, I did an update, and then I want all of my different environments to revert their version of views to the version I decide. Because my clients are going to have played with the views. I want to get rid of all that stuff and put my code there. Questions? Yeah.
En fait, je voulais savoir, Jenkins, dans un workflow normal, dans une équipe de travail, qui devrait s'occuper juste de cette partie-là, c'est-à-dire de la mise à jour?
Ben,
Quand est-ce que ça se passe?
C'est une bonne question.
Est-ce que c'est le gestionnaire de projet? Est-ce que tous les workflows...
I want to show you something. Est-ce que tout le monde parle français? Do you speak French or? Not really. So it says like, who owns the Jenkins thing? Right? Who owns the whole process? I'd like to show you a book that I really love. You know, this book is just great. It's called Continuous Delivery by Jez Humble. David Farley. It's really great. It kind of it's everything around like what we've been discussing, and these concepts we're talking about apply to any. Someone's coming. I need to finish quickly. Anyway, buy this book if you can. Production. Okay, it didn't work. What do you
we trust you, that doesn't work.
Anyway, oh no, it didn't work because it failed, right?
Oh.
That's cool. This is interesting. It failed. I don't know what failed, but it failed. And Jenkins is there as a guardian of my production site. Let's go and see what happens. Actually, we don't have time. But you get the picture. So thanks for coming. And yeah.